Hello, good morning. Welcome to the Gallery TV newspaper review as published by Nigerian Newspaper Today. Today, Tuesday, 25th May 2021. I am Babajide Kundayo. And of course, this morning I have some newspaper with me here. I have The Punch, I have The Vanguard, Nigerian Tribune, The Nation, Daily Sun, and of course I have The Daily Trust. So on The Punch this morning, the major headlines on The Punch this morning says, governors disagree as presidency backs Malami on open grazing ban. Governors disagree as presidency backs Malami on open grazing ban. You can get that on page 2 of The Punch this morning. And also the write-out to the news says, governor's announcement on grazing is of questionable legality. That is coming from the presidency. The governor's announcement on grazing is of questionable legality. And this is Ondo State Governor responding to that, also saying system outdated, that we have to stop grazing cows from Kaura and Moda to Lagos. Ondo State Governor, our system outdated, we have to stop grazing cows from Kaura and Moda to Lagos. That is coming from Ondo State Governor. And of course, still on the page, still on the Punch newspaper this morning, you see there's a news here that says experts predict 11.5% lending rate as MPC ends meeting. That is coming from Emefiele. You can get a full story on page 24 of the Punch newspaper published today. Experts predict 11.5% lending rate as MPC ends meeting. That is coming from Emefiele. You can get a full story on page 24 of the Punch newspaper published today. And of course, reps allege sabotage. Grew officials over 120 million abandoned reports scanners. Reps allege sabotage. Grew officials over $120 million abandoned port scanners. You can get the full story on page 22 of the Punch newspaper published today. And India on Indian strain. This is on Indian strain. FG begins hunt for 90 isolation invaders Wednesday. FG begins hunt for 90 isolation invaders Wednesday. Can get a full story on page 2 of the Punch newspaper as published today. And of course, on page 8 of the Punch newspaper published today, Taiwo was billed to go on UK course from June 12th, says sister of late pilot Ashani. Late pilot Ashani was part of the tragedy that claimed the life of Chief of Army Staff and other officers just this past weekend. So this is Taiwo, the pilot, the sister saying here that Taiwo was billed to go on UK course from June 12th, says sister of late pilot Osani. You can get a full story on page 8 of the Punch newspaper as published today. Still on the Punch newspaper, Lagos Ogun signed MOU on Joint Development Commission. Lagos Ogun signed MOU on Joint Development Commission. You can see this development on page 10 of the Punch newspaper as published today. And of course, Abuja bound nutritionist missing for 18 days between Ogun and Lagos. Abuja bound nutritionist missing for 18 days between Ogun and Lagos. You can get a full story on page 4 and 5 of the Punch as published today. And of course, still on the pages of newspaper, ex-Niger governor blackmailer, chronic liar, Syria betrayer, Wike. Page 15 of the Punch newspaper this morning, Wike is speaking there that ex-Niger governor blackmailer, chronic liar, a Syria killer, Syria betrayer, pardon. You can get a full story on page 15 of the Punch newspaper as published today. And there's a picture on the front page of the Punch newspaper this morning with the caption that says residents of Garaki in the Tafa local government area of Niger State during a protest against abductions on the Abuja-Kaduna highway on Monday. That the picture was taken yesterday, where a group of Nigerians were staging a protest against abduction that is very rampant in the country of today. And of course, that is what we have on the Punch newspaper this morning. Let us proceed to the next paper that we have for you this morning as we proceed on this newspaper review from the Gallery TV. And we have the Vanguard here this morning. The Vanguard, the major headline on the Vanguard says, Southern governors open grazing ban, no solution. Southern governors open grazing ban, no solution. Presidency Southern governor, open grazing ban, no solution. And also, that is the major headline on the Vanguard this morning. And on the Vanguard, insecurity, reps bill proposes scrapping of NYSC. Reps bill proposes scrapping of NYSC. The reps now considering to scrap the NYSC, and of course this is something that is of national interest, and I believe you'd like to read more on this news. You can check the Vanguard newspaper this morning. The page 9 of the Vanguard newspaper has the story. Insecurity, reps bill proposes scrapping of NYSC. And of course, on the same page 9 of the Vanguard newspaper this morning, military plane crashes, losing officers has increased our problems. That is coming from the Buhari. Military plane crashes, losing officers has increased our problem from Buhari. And of course, on page 10 of the Vanguard newspaper this morning, APC Southwest leaders' resolutions have our support. APC Southwest leaders' resolutions have our support. Akeredolu and Fayemi. You can get the full story on page 10 of the Vanguard newspaper as published this morning. Gambian Commission uncovers ex-president Jammeh's alleged crime, 9 Nigerians among victims. Gambian Commission uncovers ex-president Jammeh's alleged crime, 9 Nigerians among victims. You can get the full story on page 45 of Vanguard newspaper as published today. Still on the Vanguard newspaper, over 116 killed by herdsmen, militias in Benue, Plateau in 26 days. Over 116 killed by herdsmen, militia in Benue, Plateau in 26 days. You can get the full story on page 8 of the Vanguard newspaper as published today. And on page 41 of the Vanguard newspaper this morning, ICT leads sectorial contribution to GDP with over 4 trillion in first quarter 2021. IGP leads sectorial contribution to GDP with over 4 trillion naira in first quarter of 2021. You can get the full story on page 41 of that Vanguard newspaper as published today. One dead as police foil attempt to set station ablaze in Lagos. One dead as police foil attempts to set station ablaze in Lagos. You can get full story on page 6 of the Vanguard newspaper as published this morning. You can get that full story. If you want to read more on this news, you can check the Vanguard newspaper as published this morning. We're giving you Punch, we're giving you Vanguard, and of course, let's proceed to Tribune. The Tribune newspaper as published this morning. On the bigger headline on Tribune newspaper for this morning, 25th May 2021, says, Presidency attacks Southern governors. Presidency attacks Southern governors, accuses them of providing no solution, says stance on open grazing has questionable legality. Presidency attacks Southern governors and accuses them of providing no solution, says stance on open grazing has questionable legality. You can check that on page 5 of the Nigerian Tribune as published today. That is the major headline on the Nigerian Tribune this morning. And of course, still on the Nigerian Tribune, page 8 of the Nigerian Tribune, Buhari receives NEMA's 2020 report, endorses 1.9 billion naira Japanese disaster reduction equipment. Buhari receives NEMA's 2020 report, endorses 1.9 billion naira Japanese disaster reduction equipment. You can get the full story on page 8 of the Nigerian Tribune this morning. And of course, still on Nigerian Tribune, the page 27 of Nigerian Tribune, gunmen kill 15 in 2 communities in Plateau. Gunmen kill 15 in 2 communities in Plateau. You can get the full story on page 27 of Nigerian Tribune as published today. Still on Nigerian Tribune, page 26 of Nigerian Tribune, police confirm abduction of 6 as residents block Abuja-Kaduna highway over insecurity. Police confirm abduction of 6 as residents block Abuja and Kaduna highway over insecurity. You can get a full story on page 26 of the Nigerian Tribune as published this morning. Of course, still on the Nigerian Tribune, only God can wipe my tears as Saniye, late pilot's father. Page 2 of Nigerian Tribune has this full story. Only God can wipe my tears as Saniye, late pilot's father. Also, losses of officer has increased our problem. Buhari, still on page 2 of Nigerian Tribune. FEC Police Council meeting postponed. EFEC Police Council meeting postponed. Can get all this story on page 2 of Nigerian Tribune as published today. Reps move to scrap NYSC. Bill set for second reading. You can get the full story on page 4 of Nigerian Tribune as published today. Reps move to scrap NYSC. Bill set for second reading. Get the full story on page 4 of Nigerian Tribune as published today. And of course, on the picture on the Nigerian Tribune, we see a picture of Ogun State Governor and of course Lagos State Governor with a caption, Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu with his Ogun State counterpart, Prince Dapo Abiodun, during a joint address of the inauguration of Lagos Ogun Joint Development Commission held at the Presidential Lodge, Abeokuta, Ogun State on Monday. This is a good development for the dual state, and we hope that this brings succor to the people of two states and of course to Nigeria at large. Still on the Nigerian Tribune, page 27 of Nigerian Tribune, Asonist threatens Anambra governor election. Asonist threatening Anambra governor election. 7 vehicles, 376 generating set bonds. This is on page 27 of Nigerian Tribune today. Says Asonist threatening Anambra governor election. INEC declares that 7 vehicles, 376 generating set bonds. Also on page 29 of the Nigerian Tribune, Reps query NHIS over 152 million spent on face masks, hand sanitizer, others. Reps query NHIS over 152 million naira spent on face masks, hand sanitizers, and others. Of course, still on the page of the Nigerian Tribune, we see a story here on page 22 where Makinde chides APC for not fielding candidates in Oyo LG pool. Makinde chides APC for not fielding candidates in Oyo LG pool. You get that story on page 22 of the Tribune newspaper today. Also on page 22 of the Nigerian Tribune, Obaseki loyalists begin gradual takeover of structures. Edo PDP crisis. This is Edo PDP crisis. Obaseki's loyalists begin gradual takeover of structures. That story is captured on page 22 of the Nigerian Tribune this morning. And still on page 2 of the Nigerian Tribune, PDP finances not EFCC's business, Board of Trustee. This is coming from Board of Trustee of PDP saying that the party's finances is not EFCC's business. You can get a full story on page 2 of Nigerian Tribune as published today. And of course, that is what we have on Nigerian Tribune. Let's proceed to the Nation. Let's proceed to the Nation newspaper. On the Nation newspaper, the major headline says, Presidency slams Southern governors over open grazing ban. On the Nation this morning, Presidency slams Southern governors open grazing ban. That is the major headline on the Nation paper this morning. It says federal government to fund ranching. Akeredolu ban. Akeredolu saying ban is irreversible. Presidency slams Southern governor over open grazing ban. Federal government to fund ranching. Akeredolu says ban is irreversible. And of course, still on the Nation newspaper, there's a story here coming from INEC say more INEC offices raised in Anambra, Enugu, Imo. That you can get the news, the full gist of the story on page 6 of the Nation as published today. More INEC offices raised in Anambra, Enugu, and Imo. Can get the news story, the full story on page 6 of the Nation newspaper as published today. And of course, still on the Nation newspaper on page 8, why autonomy for legislature judiciary is key by agency, the Director General. You can get that on page 8 of the Nation newspaper as published today. Why autonomy for legislature judiciary is key by agency DG. And of course, still on the Nation newspaper, you can get on page 33 of the Nation newspaper, Abiodun's aide surety is fraud suspect, says US. Abiodun's aide surety is fraud suspect, says US. Can get the full story on page 33 of the Nation newspaper as published today. And still on the Nation newspaper, page 33 of the Nation newspaper, Lagos Ogun launch joint development commission. Lagos Ogun launch joint development commission. Can get the full story on the page 33 of the Nation newspaper as published today. Still on the Nation newspaper, Buhari governor orders to determine APC convention date. That is page 6 of the Nation newspaper today. Buhari governors orders to determine APC convention date. Page 6 of the Nation newspaper this morning. Of course, let's proceed to, we are still on the Nation newspaper. 58 killed in Niger, Benue and Plateau. 58 killed in Niger, Benue and Plateau. You can get a full story and continue to the story on page 8 of the Nation newspaper. There is a story on the page 8, on the first page of the newspaper, buttressing this headline that says 58 killed in Niger, Benue and Plateau. You can get a full story on page 6 of the Nation newspaper as published today. Also, IMF activates $50 billion US plan to end COVID-19. IMF activates $50 billion US to plan end COVID-19. Okonjo-Iweala says equity. You can get a full story on page 5 of the Nation newspaper as published today. Let us proceed to the Daily Sun. Daily Sun as published this morning. On the headline, the major headline on Daily Sun, Buhari fourth ban. Okay's grazing reserves take off. Buhari fourth ban. Okay's grazing reserves take off. Rubbishes Southern Governor's resolution. Buhari was this the presidency now speaking on open grazing. Buhari fourth ban. Okay's grazing reserves take off. Rubbishes Southern Governor's resolutions. You can get a full story on page 6 of the Daily Sun newspaper as published today. And of course, on the front page of the Daily Sun, Southeast leader decry injustice against Igbo. Southeast leaders decry injustice against Igbo. You can get the full story on page 7 of the Daily Sun newspaper as published this morning. Still on the Daily Sun newspaper, another INEC office raised in Enugu. Another INEC office raised in Enugu. The story is captured on page 5 and page 7 of the Sun newspaper as published today. Another INEC office raised in Enugu. Still on the Sun newspaper this morning, 2.35 million Nigerians displaced by bandits flood in 2020. NEMA is speaking here that 2.35 million Nigerians displaced by bandits flood in 2020. This is coming from NEMA as Buhari receives agency's report. You can get a full story on page 27 of the Daily Sun newspaper as published today. Get the full gist on page 27 of the Daily Sun published today. Retired Commodore fears more Air Force plane crashes. Retired Commodore fears more Air Force plane crashes. You can get a full story on page 2. Says investigation reports will be top secret. You can get a full story on page 2 of the Daily Sun as published today. Insecurity. Chief of Army Staff orders that we've increased our problem presidency. Chief of Army Staff orders that have increased our problem. This is coming from the presidency. You can get the full story on page 6 and page 7 of the Sun newspaper as published today. National dialogue will end agitation. This is coming from Autumn. And of course, still on the Sun newspaper, Ebubiagu, Ebonyi stakeholders rally support for Umahi. Ebubiagu, Ebonyi stakeholders rally support for Umahi. Can get the full story on page 28 of the Daily Sun newspaper as published this morning. Still on the Daily Sun newspaper, Lagos Ogun signs MOU on borderline development. Lagos Ogun sign MOU on borderline development. You can get the full story on page 28 of the Sun newspaper as published today. Of course, let's proceed to the next newspaper that we have for you this morning. The last but not the least on our list this morning is Daily Trust. On Daily Trust paper this morning, we have residents recount ordeals as gunmen kill scores in Benue. On Daily Trust this morning, the major headline says residents recount ordeals as gunmen kill scores in Benue. It said Ghana boy is convinced with herders LG chair alleges autumn to Benue people gets being gone for self-defense. Autumn to Benue people gets being gone for self-defense. We have no hands in attack. Mark Bank saying that we have no hand in attack. 7 killed in Plateau reprisal. You can get this story on page 5 of Daily Trust newspaper as published today. You can get the news story on page 5 of Daily Trust newspaper as published today. 2023, more crack in APC over open ticket. in 2023. This is talking about 2023 election. There are more crack in APC over open ticket. Can get a full story on page 30 of Daily Trust as published this morning. Reps Bill 6 scrapping of NYSC. Reps Bill 6 scrapping of NYSC. Can get a full story on page 4 of Daily Trust newspaper as published this morning. And of course, still on page 4 of Daily Trust newspaper for this morning, presidency, Southern governors offered no solution after banning open grazing. This is coming from the presidency, alleging that Southern governors offered no solution after banning open grazing. You can get a full story on page 4 of Daily Trust newspaper as published this morning. Still on Daily Trust newspaper, inside Sokoto clinic, where local troops for surgery back. Inside Sokoto clinic, where local troops for surgery by quack doctor. Inside Sokoto clinic, where local troops for surgery by quack doctors. You can get the full story on page 3 of the Daily Trust newspaper. University College London appoints Professor Ibrahim Abubakar as Dean. University College London appoints Professor Ibrahim Abubakar as Dean. Can get the full story on page 9 of the Daily Trust newspaper as published this morning. And of course, on the page 6 of Daily Trust newspaper this morning, there's a story there that reads, truck crushes 3 to death in Ogun State. Truck crushes 3 to death in Ogun State. Okay, so still on the death of Chief of Army Staff, politicking as Buhari weighs option for new Chief of Army Staff. You can get a full story on page 4 of the Daily Trust newspaper for this morning. That is what we have for you this morning on the Gallery TV newspaper review, and we hope that you get the full story and for your viewing pleasure and for your satisfaction. So do join us by 12 noon for another news update, and of course join us as we bring you the latest news to for your viewing pleasure. Thank you very much for joining us. Do have a wonderful day. Bye for now.